getting warm here. And I don't know. I'm not I'm not entirely sure what I want to share. I've had this topic for a while, thinking about victimhood mentality, and perhaps a bit of a different take than I often hear, which is I often hear people sharing about being the being a victor, not a victim. I remember Craig Holiday, I think, one of his videos or one of his satsangs, that was the theme. The importance of being a victor, not a victim. And there is a great truth in that. But I want to, and you'll find a lot of people sharing that message, and it's not too, I guess anything can be controversial, but it's pretty, well, let me say it this way. There's always shadows that are cast by every teaching, and that teachings target a certain thing. They come as a reaction to an imbalance, as I've said a few times in a few videos. And so the right teaching at the right time is a great thing. But I just wanted to, I don't know I guess I just wanted to add another dimension to that idea. Now you don't want to trying to figure my way into this one. Where that teaching, let me say it this way, where that teaching can be a little bit dangerous is that that can be a very cheap teaching. Not to say that Craig was saying it that way, but it can be, or I don't know. I mean, I can't say, where anyone's coming from, but that can be a very cheap teaching in a certain context. It's an easy thing to say, don't be a victim, don't get caught in victim mentality. You're being a victim. Nobody likes a victim. And that can be, it's like the sagest advice can be perverted. The sagest, wisest teaching can be weaponized in a hurtful or unhelpful way, damaging way. And I can just think well, let me get to that in a second. Where I see this idea of don't be a victim potentially being dangerous is when it prevents one on their journey from recognizing their own pain, their own woundedness, their own trauma. It can be a very prohibitive kind of teaching, in that it prohibits access to that pain. Is the fact I mean, this one, yeah, I can imagine this isn't going to go over too well saying this, but fact is, we have been victims on this planet. All of us, different times, in different ways. Have been victims of life. And that's just how it is, you know? Because that's part of the experience here is we get brutalized, we get beat up, we go through hell, we go through really difficult shit. And so, and the way that the healing path goes is you have to be able to acknowledge that inner pain, or else it stays locked inside of you. And so part of that is being able to say to yourself, fuck, I was a victim there. I didn't deserve that. That was bullshit that I had to go through. Whatever experience. That was awful. That was really, it's like you have to be able to have compassion towards those parts of yourself that have gone through hell, that have been wounded. We could say traumatized, we could say victimized, we'll just say wounded. Now, you don't want to get caught in those places. You acknowledge them so they can come forward, so they can feel safe, so that they can release, so that you can heal, so that you can integrate them. That's why you acknowledge it. But if we move too quickly into this paradigm or this kind of frequency or disposition, I can't think of quite the right word, this approach of saying, stop being a victim, you're not a victim, don't be a victim. There is the potential there that we shut ourselves down emotionally. I mean, I can just remember, just personally speaking, growing up in the family system, having that kind of stuff used as a way, a phrase like, oh, don't play the victim, nobody likes the victim, stop being a victim, oh, he's just a victim. Having that kind of phrase used as a way of, used in an emotionally immature way, used in a way to, it's almost like somebody saying, when somebody is not able to handle the child's, when an adult or whoever is not able to handle, let's say, adult-child dynamic, an adult is not able to handle a child going through something difficult, having an emotional response, it's can be weaponized or used as a way to shut down that response, as a way to not engage, as a way of saying, I can't deal with this, so I'm gonna make you give you it's like, I can't think of quite the right word. It's like, I'm gonna shame you for having the emotion, or feel guilty for having the emotion, something like that, and I'm gonna do it. And that's one of those phrases that carries a lot of, does a lot of work in terms of emotionally blocking somebody. Oh, quit being a victim. Nobody likes a victim. So that is a possibility and a real shadow, and how that idea can really be leveraged to hurt. It's usually leveraged at somebody to hurt somebody. And then that can be, in turn, internalized, inwardly projected, that these hurting parts, we have this kind of I guess that could be the superego in a Freudian or classical psychoanalytic, psychological terms, that we've internalized these shoulds and well, I guess I'm not too comfortable speaking in terms of superego. I just haven't, explored it enough. I feel a little out of my depth using that terminology. But my understanding is it's sort of like the internalized social values and kind of the internal I don't know, not quite policemen, but moral police or something like that. And I don't know, is there a healthy superego versus an unhealthy superego? Is the superego always unhealthy? So yeah, I don't know. But we can internalize those messages. So it's like we carry these sort of unhealthy patterns that were first projected onto us, then we sort of internalize those, and it's like we no longer need the external criticism or the external condemnation or the external shamer or condemner, whatever. And so we then become blocked off from, it's like we invalidate our own emotions, our own pain, our own healing. When it comes up, we have that voice, that once external voice of a parent or whoever it was, that energy, that voice still inhabits the consciousness, and so it can still act upon us to keep us divided, wounded, unhealed. Invalidate is the kind of overriding word that I couldn't think of earlier, but the victim, victor, that dichotomy, don't be a victim versus being a victim, can be used as a strategy to invalidate. Now, this is all really useful for inner work, personal work, one's work on themselves. It's good to recognize these potential pitfalls and these potential shadows. Because of that internalized, gosh, is it superego? I think I'm using that right. Yeah, that the world by and large doesn't know how to heal, doesn't know how to interact in a healthy way. And for a variety of reasons, like people, yeah, it's personal work, basically, is what I'm trying to say. This is personal work, and so it's just something to play with. Now, you don't want to get caught in being a victim, and there's a whole psychology behind that. But if you are struggling, just kind of having that invalidation thrown at you when you're already, a hot mess, when you already got a lot of pain, that's not going to be useful. That's not going to be helpful to hear that. What's true about that teaching of not being a victim is that it moves you in the direction of greater autonomy, greater power. But I've personally found that just through doing the deep healing work, that autonomy, that power, that wholeness, freedom from division, more and more comes forward. It's not so much of like affirmation based. Got to get the right mindset. I got to have the right affirmations running. Oh shit, I'm in my victim mentality. Okay, I got to, listen to empowering speakers. That just doesn't work for me. I don't know how much of this is dispositional. Some of it probably. But I've just always sensed that's a very kind of superficial, that affirmation, positive affirmation, willpower, curating your thinking mind, your thoughts, getting the right thoughts. There's a limit to how effective that can be. And I think it can really be leveraged by an unhealed psyche, an unhealed, wounded being, to keep them in a wounded state, because there's a superficiality that you can kind of sense into that energy field of that positive affirmation approach. Again, it's like, is there utility there? There's definitely something to be said about ingesting healthier material, in terms of what what media you consume and etc. But the journey is an inward journey. It's an inner journey. It's more of a unfolding. It's more of a blossoming. It's more of a healing and letting grace shine through. It's more of a becoming transparent and letting God's light shine through, wholeness shine through, rather than a particular cultivation or manipulation or curation of the mind and of the mindset. I don't know. I don't want to go too deep into that because I don't have it fully fleshed out. But so yeah, I don't hear it often talked about. And the other thing is, we do have a bit of a culture of, there's like a social capital around being a victim. A lot of it comes out of leftist, identitarian, radical politics, critical theory, intersectionality, all of that crap, all of that stuff. That it creates all these perverse incentives, and there's social capital in being in a victim category. You've got oppressor and oppressed, and to the oppressed goes a kind of perverse social capital, a kind of perverse heroism, a kind of perverse status. And so, a teaching like not being a victim is speaking into a cultural context, and I get that, I see that. There's a relevance there because you don't want to stake your identity. I mean, there's so much wrong with that identitarian approach, and I've talked about it in another couple videos I did, talking about ideology. But for a myriad reasons, for a number of reasons, there's just that approach is very dangerous, not helpful. But a part of it is the kind of pedestalizing or fetishizing. Maybe that's too strong of a word. Idealizing or elevation of being a victim. if you can find a way that you qualify in that intersectional matrix of marginalization, there's a kind of, yeah, like I say, a perverse incentive. But that whole project is just so corrupt and so defunct, because it's like it's a substitution of true spirituality, true transcendence, true connection with God, with spirit, with grace. Uh, the deepest aspects of identity, that we are children of God, that our identity rests in God. From God we come, from, out of grace. And and that we have all these, there's so much to our being, so much dimensionality, but that whole identitarian leftist project, it substitutes all of that, the living truth, for this kind of pseudo counterfeit spirituality, and it elevates the self, the marginalized self, to this. It sort of deifies that, and it locates your identity in this very narrow bandwidth of being a political entity, of being an activist, of being this identity category, being super identified with one's race, one's gender, one's sexual orientation, one's whatever. And locating all of one's identity and energy and focus obsessively in that project. So it's a real mess. But yeah, so that's another dimension to this whole victimhood conversation, is you can really get caught in some strange, like, power games, and it's better to feel empowered, obviously, than to feel helpless. And it's good to be accountable where you can for things that are in your control. But you can become too severe in that direction, to where you're carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. You're lacking compassion towards the world, towards yourself. You're getting rigid and sort of dogmatic. And you kind of, you can miss out on the fact that we do struggle on this earth. Or sometimes we are the victim of circumstance. It's not that you stake your identity there or anything, but it's okay to recognize that you've been hurt, and to process that pain, and have compassion towards yourself. And like I say, most of what I'm trying to add or contribute here has to do with the process of waking up, the process of healing, process of integration. So yeah, it's just a caution, I guess, more than anything. Your identity ultimately is in God. You are a child of the Most High. You are a child of God. Depth of your being is infinite. And that's the truth. That's really the bottom line. So Yeah, you're not a victim, ultimately, in any ultimate sense. It's also okay to have compassion and to recognize times when you have been overwhelmed and times when you know, have really, yeah, gone through painful experiences. You don't have to identify with it. Um, you just let it come forward and you heal it. Anyways, I think I've said whatever needed to be said, so may you be well, may you be well, may you be well. Peace.